Okay.
I got it. Okay. All righty, guys. All right, guys. My name is David. I'm a recovered alcoholic and a drug addict. And welcome to this intensive deep dive study of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm going to start this meeting out with the set aside prayer. So, God, please set aside everything I think I know about myself, my unmanageability, my spiritual path, and you for an open mind and a new experience of myself, my unmanageability, my spiritual path, and especially you. All right, guys, we read and emphasize the instructions, promises, prayers, questions, and warnings, other key information. We believe that we cannot get well unless A, we know what is wrong with us, B, what is the solution to that problem, and C, what is the action to get to the solution. Fortunately, the answers are in the book. There are no attendee comment portions in this study, but we will take questions. Please post questions in the Zoom chat, and Rob or Brett will answer them to the best of their ability here, or we can answer them at the end of the meeting. If we don't answer them as we go, we will in the WhatsApp group too. That's an option, or we will note them for a future meeting if they are not quite on topic. We are not the official Big Book experts or gurus, but we will share our experience and knowledge of our study of the book and the teaching of those who came before us. So again, to help us with key definitions along the way, our dictionary person tonight is Brett. Give a good wave there, Brett. That's a perfect wave. And Rob, of course, is behind the scenes, but in front of the scenes also doing the chat tonight. So let's move on to the reading, guys. We're going to be on page, we're in A Vision for You. So we're in our last chapter, and we're on page 152, 152. Second paragraph. So before I start that, let me introduce to you tonight our special guest, and always welcome Kathy in because I'm so excited that she participates and is always so eager to do so. David is out of town, and Kathy Eber is here to assist and probably do help. As she always does a great job. I'm always excited to do this with her. So welcome, Kathy, please.
Thank you so much, David. I'm Kathy, alcoholic addict. And should we begin the reading?
Yes, please.
And thank you, Brett and Rob, too. Okay, so we are on 152 at paragraph 2. Yes, there is a substitute. It is vastly more than that. It is a fellowship in Alcoholics Anonymous. There you will find release from care, boredom, and worry. Your imagination will be fired. Life will mean something at last. The most satisfactory years of your existence lie ahead. Thus we find the fellowship, and so will you.
I
Kathy and
have
Brett.
I have vastly, which means hugely or incredibly. Imagination, vision, and fired, passion, excitement.
Thank you, Brett. Yeah, so the prior paragraph of this it talks about being shown of what we got out from under, and it also talks about that I should not be, and Bill phrases it this, but am I to be consigned to a life where I shall be stupid, boring, and glum like some righteous people I see? If I am one of those people in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, maybe I should get a big book sponsor and work the steps as if my ass is on fire, right? Because this is, and I'm going to steal a phrase from Chris Raymer. Should we just all be sunbeams for Jesus? Yes, we should be. We should absolutely be so excited about this second life that we get to live. So, to our paragraph tonight, then, is talking about yes, there's a substitute. So that substitute is a spiritual experience. It's a vast substitute. Um, and it is a fellowship. So there's three sides to our triangle. One of them is the base of the triangle is recovery. That's our 12 steps. Another side is unity. That's a fellowship. That's what I got introduced to first. Of course, I got introduced to the fellowship. I got welcomed in right away. I'll never forget my first meeting. I sat next down to a guy who became my best friend. Unfortunately and heartbreakingly, he passed away at 17 years of sobriety with stage 4 cancer in a 3-week period of time from the time he got diagnosed to that period. But I got to be at his last meeting, and his last meeting was at his house. I flew red eye out to Arizona. I rounded up all his sponsees, and we had his last meeting in his living room. And I brought him his 17-year coin because he passed away right afterwards. I mean, Yeah, I could cry right now. It's giving me goosebumps, that how God showed up and allowed me to be a part of that in his life. And then at the very end of that too, his wife let me she wanted me to go through all his AA memorabilia. So a lot of us old timers, we can go back a ways and look at remember the phone lists that we used to have? They were kind of like in an accordion style. Write down everybody's phone number. Nobody had area codes back in the day because you didn't need area codes back then. Like I have that. I have like all kinds of old AA stuff. He's been gone now for about 12 years. So this is almost 30 years ago from the time he came in Alcoholics Anonymous. But that guy is the guy I sat next to in my very first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. His name was Kenny Baker. And he was just absolutely out of his mind, full of Jesus, full of the spirit, full of something. I mean, he made AA look so attractive, but I was scared to death. I was like, what is this dude on? I mean, it was just, he was an attraction to Alcoholics Anonymous for me. Is it odd or is it God that I sat right next to that guy? And we became so, Janice even worded it, right? Lipped it, God. It was because him and I did all kinds of 12-step work together. We had the same sponsor for probably about, I don't know, 15 years together. And we coached our kids in softball together. I used to go to his church and listen to him play in the band. And one other thing I have to share, I did not know how to be a dad in sobriety. Had 5 daughters. You think I'm kidding? I did not know how to interact with my children without having some mind altering substance in me. It just didn't happen in the latter years of my drinking and drugging. And I used to go to his house because he'd say, I like my kids was okay, this is the way it was a fancied or real, it was probably fancied, but I remember thinking my kids are pulling each other's hair, they're knocking things over. It's so loud in my house. My wife is yelling at me, and I would call him up and he's like, dude, you need to come over to my house. And he lived about 5 miles from me, and I would come over and I would observe how he interacted with his kids. I would observe how he interacted with his wife. And I'm a chameleon. I am a good chameleon. Like I started like chameleon what he was doing, and I started taking that stuff home to my family, right? And what is that? That's practicing these principles in all my affairs long before I knew how to practice these principles in all my affairs. And I started interacting with my children. I started playing catch with them, and I started uh, showing up in my sobriety station, and not being so darn upset all the time. And what it basically came down to is that I started working with my sponsor. I started working with Kenny, and I started incorporating prayer. And when I started incorporating prayer, my life started changing. And that was the fellowship that I was introduced to in 1999. And I am so grateful God showed up in my life the way that he did and put a guy like that in my life. And I'm still good friends with his wife and his kids today. It's just a real blessing that gentleman was a huge part of me staying in Alcoholics Anonymous. Huge attraction. Are we supposed to be attractions? Yes, we are. Are we supposed to be a demonstration? Yes, indeed, he was. So I got to say that, I'm still being a chameleon in my life because of that guy. A lot of this stuff is not of my doing, it comes through me, not of me. So the last little thing in that paragraph, life will mean something at last. That is actually having a spiritual experience for me. Like actually working these steps, to with all the vigor that I can muster. And then it says the most satisfactory years of your existence lie ahead. Again, I've had some wonderful, wonderful 24 hours. Earl Hightower talks about it. And I've had a couple down the dump days. Couple down in the dump days in over 25 years. But I've had a lot of good 24 hours. That is so like the scale is not even close to being balanced. And those days that I didn't, it's probably because I didn't invite God in. It's probably because I didn't get out of myself and become of service to someone else. And then it says, thus we find the fellowship, and so will you. So please, if you don't like the meetings you're going to, go find some new meetings. If they're not literature based, go find some different meetings, right? I mean, I tell my guys, man, literature based meetings. I go to one discussion meeting, a live one. It's a great one because it's all big book based or 12 and 12. I mean, people come out of the book or either one. But if it was about what plumber you're supposed to get and what are we supposed to do with that washing machine that's breaking down or the cat behind the refrigerator, well, how do we get him out? Oh, I've been to those meetings, and I know you guys have too. And we actually discussed it for 45 minutes. It's like, oh my God, I didn't know until I didn't know. No, let's talk about solution. So that's all I got there, Kathy.
Thank you so much, David. And I don't know who said it, Kathy, alcoholic addict, but I've heard it before. I haven't had bad days, I've had selfish days. And I love
Ah,
that. Yeah, and I just want to back up a wee minute at the paragraph he's ended on last week, or the second last if he's ended on paragraph one. And you were talking about practicing the principles and all your affairs and how he took you over to your house. And the key word I'm just going to pick on here is that word we have shown you. And like all I want to say about that is how the people modeled to me in Alcoholics Anonymous who are recovered, who work this program, be it my sponsor, be it my network, they show me how to work this program. Just like I sit down and show another alcoholic how I did it through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it talks to us in the first edition about how we to show other alcoholics precisely how we've recovered is the main purpose of this book. And this meeting is called the main, yeah, it's the main purpose, isn't it? I think I got it right. Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. So, I'm not talking down to an alcoholic. I'm not talking at you. I'm showing you by example because I've had this transformation, and I just wanted to touch in on that. And we're now in a vision for you. It's lovely. And so I think of this chapter as okay, it comes after the program and precisely what we're talking about there when it says we have shown you how we got out from under. They've showed us the program, they've put it on paper for us. And it's also looking about what came, looking about how this all came about, the history, I suppose, Bill's way of writing history, and also the promises of the fellowship. You touched on the fellowship. There's so many promises in this chapter of the fellowship, and the fellowship with the capital F,
Mm.
and then there's that fellowship as we know it, where the joy and camaraderie when we come into the rooms and people ask us, do we want a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and how are we, and all that we have that, but then we have this fellowship of the capital F, which is, and where was it here? Yeah, well, I'll just end on the sentence that I started. The fellowship of the capital F is my sponsor works with me, I work with you, and you sponsor someone else, and so on and so forth. We create this fellowship. It talks about on page 89, paragraph 2. I was going to go back when I did something on that paragraph, but now I've started, I better finish it. It talks about that promise. Let me get it. Yeah, it talks about yes, how to watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see this fellowship grow up about you. That's, like I said, is a fellowship where I work with you and you get your sponsee, and then they get a sponsee, and so on and so forth. And like we get to create our own fellowship of the spirit, quote unquote. Like, and what was I going to say? Yeah, so back to the paragraph 2 and 152. But I love this. It talks about it's vastly more than that. You talked about it. This substitute is a spiritual awakening, a spiritual experience. If it was just coming to meetings and just going to, you talked about those kinds of meetings, and I heard someone refer to them, this is non-original, as disgusting meetings. If I'm just going there, that's not a substitute for alcoholism. That's taking my body, that's treating the physical part, but it's not treating my mind, and it's not treating my spiritual malady. But also, we can look at how it says it is a fellowship in Alcoholics Anonymous. Keyword is the word in, like as step 2. That's created by sponsorship, right? That's created by the demonstration of my sponsor demonstrating that in me, the fellowship with the capital F, I think. And this line, there you will find release from care, boredom, and worry. This is what the fellowship in AA can give us, right? And it talks about how the non-alcoholic on page 151 what they get from alcohol is, you know, release from care, boredom, and worry. We didn't get that at the end, but the non-alcoholic gets that. But what AA gives us, the fellowship, gives us that release from care, boredom, and worry. And I love this line: the most satisfactory years of your existence lie ahead.
Mhm.
You know, especially when you have an AA birthday, by the grace of God, we get to say, like, may the best years lie ahead of us. You know, this was a good year, but may the best is yet to come, basically. And I love that. Yeah, that's all I have on that. Next paragraph. How is that to come about, you ask? Where am I to find these people? Do you want me to stop or go on?
Oh, go ahead, please.
You are going to meet these new friends in your own community. Near you, alcoholics are dying helplessly like people in a sinking ship. If you live in a large place, there are hundreds, high and low, rich and poor. These are future fellows of Alcoholics Anonymous. Among them, you will make lifelong friends. You will be bound to them with new and wonderful ties, for you will escape disaster together and you will commence shoulder to shoulder your common journey. Then you will know what it means to give of yourself that others may survive and rediscover life. You will learn the full meaning of love thy neighbor as thyself.
Nothing, Brett. Okay. All right. So yeah, so I love Bill and how he does it. He always poses our question, then he gives us the solution, and he also gives us the practical program of action right away. We don't have to wait chapter after chapter, try to search this stuff out to find out what he's talking about. Bill's real plain, real clear cut. And I love that about him. So we're talking about here, where are we going to find these people? Well, we're going to meet these new friends in our community near you. Okay, and this is so this book is published in 1939, not as large of a fellowship, of course, as it is today, where we're 2 million plus, and every community, for the most part, has a lot of AA meetings, or CA meetings, or DA meetings, or OA meetings, or gamblers, and there's all kinds of meetings that we can get to. Right, I just can get to them. But it says near you, alcoholics are dying helplessly like people in a sinking ship. Please understand how vital and important that statement really is. People are dying. If I am not armed with the facts about this book, if I'm just telling people to call me every day and go to meetings, this is not a slam on my very first sponsor, but that's what he had me do, and I did that for 5 years or more, and I don't suggest that to anyone in this group, or anywhere else that I go to meetings at, but it worked for me somehow by the grace of God, and I didn't pick up. We never opened up the big book. I never worked any steps like that until I got introduced to a big book study, and then I started learning it. But we're talking about this sinking ship, and I got to go back. I got to relate things as Bill talks about them in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I hope I'm not going to steal Kathy's thunder, but page 17, like we talk about, and there's the solution, second paragraph. It says in chapter 2, and there is a solution. It's full of hope. This chapter is devoted to hope. Hope is a description of um, beyond my present circumstances. So let's see. Second paragraph. We are average Americans, all sections of this country, and many of its occupations are represented, as well as many political, economic, social, religious backgrounds. Okay, I'm going to say one thing about the traditions here. Third tradition: leave my social liberties outside of the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Do not go in there pro-choice, pro-life, pro-gun, anti-gun. Those are the things that don't belong in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. You want to talk about that kind of stuff? Go to Denny's. Don't invite me. I don't want to be a part of that conversation. I'm just saying, leave my social liberties. By the way, the Alcoholics Anonymous gave me back. So I don't get to do that in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. But that was not my point. But it says, we are people who would normally not mix. I agree. But I'm looking for similarities, not differences. But there is this among us a fellowship, a friendliness, an understanding, which is indescribably wonderful. Please listen to Bill and his writing here. We are like the passengers of a great liner at the moment of rescue. From shipwreck to camaraderie, joyousness and democracy pervade the vessel. From steerage to captain table, from the top of the ship where everybody's rich as hell to the bottom where the rats are living. This is how we get in the fellowship. Doesn't matter what walk of life we come from. It does not. If you give me a choice of the guy who pulls up in the Porsche, or the guy who rides the bike with one flat tire and two left shoes and hole in the left one, I want to sponsor that guy. that guy has a better chance of staying sober than the person in the Porsche. That's just my experience. It might not be yours. Just saying. Um, then it says, unlike the feelings of the ship passengers, however, our joy and escape from disaster does not subside as we go our individual ways. We don't have to go our individual ways. We can stay together. After the Titanic sunk, and they divided everybody up according to class again. They all went their separate ways. We are on a sinking ship. We were, and we got triaged. We got saved. So we got to continue to work this thing, as Bill just said in the prior paragraph. I think it was on the page of 152, shoulder to shoulder. That's what we do this thing. I work with my sponsees shoulder to shoulder, and so Herb K uses the term spiritual guide. And I spiritual guide a lot of people. I don't sponsor everybody. I sponsor double digit people. Most of them is over 20 plus years, just doing 10 steps most of the time, that kind of work, and making sure they're doing their 12-step work, holding them accountable. But what about Dr. Bob? And the good news is Howard's here, and the bad news, Howard's here for me. So I'm just saying, I'm going to give a number, and I don't even know what it is for sure. But Dr. Bob worked with 40,000 alcoholics, possibly, or am I confusing that with Dr. Soakworth? I don't know. He worked with a lot of people, right? So he couldn't have possibly sponsored all these people. I mean, he did the step work with them, took them to the work, patted them on their little cabooses, and said, "You go carry this message," right? That's what we do. We prepare them. And you'll hear Howard talk about this. And then I do this today. I didn't do this until I started studying with Howard and Kathy. I take people through the steps, and I kind of leave it at that. Now I take them through the traditions too. I have a traditions workshop at my house once a month. All my sponsees and my grand sponsees, we come to my house and we do a traditions workshop once a month, and that's part of what I try to do. And then I also do that one-on-one with the guys after we take them through the steps. After I take them through the steps. So back to the reading on page 117. So this says, this feeling of having shared in a common peril, which is the element of powerful cement which binds us. So that's about the problem. That's about alcoholism, right? You know what? When I landed in jail, we all had the same problem. Every one of us. We all got there for the same reason, drinking and drugging. Here's the tremendous fact in the third paragraph. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we discovered a common solution. I must have problem and I must have solution if I'm going to make this thing, if I'm going to get to God. I must have both. And we have a way out by which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and a harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism. So I'm taking up a lot of time and I apologize. Back to our reading at 152, fourth paragraph. So it talks about if you live in a large place, there are hundreds. We know that today there's even more than that. We got our Zoom meetings today, and I've been on Zoom meetings where there's 800 people back during the COVID thing. It was crazy. You couldn't even get in sometimes. The high and the low, and the rich and the poor. These are future fellows of Alcoholics Anonymous. Among them, you will find a lifelong friends. That has been my experience. I consider you guys all lifelong friends, and I know that you would be there for me, and I would be there for you. Probably closer than my own blood in a lot of cases. Most cases. I mean, I don't know if my sisters, they're not alcoholics, but I don't want them to hear this, but I'm just saying I have no, they're two of my best friends, but I know that I can count on you guys no matter what. If I call you, you may be busy, you will call me back. If I, today's the anniversary, the 7-year anniversary of my daughter passing. Um, and that at that wake, I can't tell you how many people of Alcoholics Anonymous showed up. I mean, from all over the United States. I mean, 400 people. I mean, customers of mine. But back to the fellowship. Those are the things that bind us, because we're going to go through trials and low spots of life, and it talks about it on the bottom of page 14 and 15. I mean, this is it. It's impossible to avoid these things, but Bill points it out here. It says, for if an alcoholic failed to perfect in the largest spiritual life, to work and self-sacrifice with others, he cannot survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. That has been my experience. I never thought about taking a drink and a drug, or even to this moment of taking a drink and a drug. And if I would have taken a drink and a drug, no one would have been mad at me at that moment, because they would have said, I understand completely. but that was never an option for me because I had a relationship with power, and because I was trained or I was suggested to pick up the phone, and on the way to the hospital that night, and maybe I've shared this story before, but on the way to the hospital after I got the phone call that my daughter had OD'd, I called two people in Alcoholics Anonymous on the way there, and I spoke to them for 45 minutes on my ride to the hospital. I didn't do any of this alone, because we do this brotherly, harmoniously together. Um, Back to the text on the bottom of page 152 in the fourth paragraph. We will be bound to them with new and wonderful ties, for we will escape disaster together, as I just pointed out, and we will commence shoulder to shoulder your common journey. So this is the common journey because we all get the same result. There is only one. Our solution is a spiritual experience. It is free for all the taking as long as I do this honestly and thoroughly. Then you will know what it means to give of yourself. Key, pay attention to that. It's important. And you will learn the meaning of love thy neighbor as thyself. So love thy neighbor as thyself sounds like the golden rule. Well, I remember knowing that as a kid. I didn't know any real religious terms, but that one I know. So I need to treat people like I want to be treated today. And it's not a stretch, because if I'm practicing these principles in all my affairs, I should be treating people like that. My wife, my kids, and that was not a common practice for me. I could do that because I've been a salesperson for 40 years. I could treat my customers with I could put them on a pedestal. I could treat them, I could spoil them to death. But I would come home sometimes and I would just not be a nice guy to be around. I was not having the spiritual experience at home. I was not practicing these principles in all my affairs. I was not inviting God in. And when I started incorporating prayer and asking God to direct my thinking, then I started knowing how to treat my wife and my kids better than I've ever done before. Um, I survive and I rediscover this new life. I will learn the full meaning of love thy neighbor as thyself. That has been my experience. Go ahead, Kathy.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, David. And I love how you pointed out that Bill posed a question, always gives us an answer. There's no figuring out to do here, guys. We get the answer. And that sentence, near you, alcoholics are dying helplessly like people in a sinking ship. I love how you went back to page 17. We were saying the same thing, so I'm glad you did that. But it made me just remark on the fact that when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, personally, I didn't know how sick I was. Like, I did not have a clue what alcoholism was. And I also look at this paragraph full of promises, and also being through the program, being a recovered alcoholic addict, had a spiritual awakening as a call to action. Like, we are so lucky today. Like, we don't really have to go that far to go and help people. Like, we just press a couple of buttons and here we are. Back in the day, they're telling us, how are you going to meet these people? Like, and here we are, we just press a few buttons. But like, people are dying in the Zoom rooms. If we're, like, we go online, so we haven't been in person in a while, but in the back of like meetings, people are dying. Like, I don't think they say sit up front for no reason. Like, I know that's not in the book, but well, it doesn't matter about time. We just think sometimes like, oh, if you're new, they're they really need help. Yes, they do. But if I'm an Alcoholics Anonymous and I haven't worked the program and I have so much time away from alcohol, drugs, and so on and so forth, but I haven't worked the program, I'm a beginner. I am a beginner every day. But the point I'm just making here is like, it's not what always we think it is. These people can be like dying in the back of our rooms, is what I'm saying. But I love how it says here, rich and poor, these are future fellows of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I just have a little note here. A fellowship is a group of equals that share common interests. So us, we have the common solution. We have the common problem. And you talked about that a minute ago. We have the problem and we have the solution. And our job is to carry this message to other alcoholics still suffering. So we're a group of equals. But I love that. Like, this to me, again, is a call to action. Like, I have to realize my primary purpose when I come to meetings. I'm here to stay sober and help another alcoholic, and to remember that that person who needs help may not know they need help, but it's my responsibility to go and to approach them and to show up to them, because like it says, they can be future members of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I loved the examples you gave about, you know, your daughter when she passed away, and my heart was just really, yeah, you're in my prayers, you and your family, David. But you know, I'm just thinking about how these are not my words. I heard it from someone else, and I so really it is like my favorite place and people to be around are members of Alcoholics Anonymous and in the meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous and with my husband. That's just it. My family, they're great. I love them, but you get me. I don't even have to open my mouth when I look at sponsees, when I look at friends, fellows, and I just know when they're not doing well. You know, we just know how to show up for others, and it's so unconditional. And like that's what I love when it says, "Love thy neighbor as thyself." And to give of yourself so that others may survive and rediscover life, you know. And I think not that I'm a martyr, not that I'm great, but if someone needs help, it's like there's no hanging about. If I get that call or someone needs a sponsor, it's like I got to drop everything. I got to help this person because I know what it's like to not be able to stay sober. I know what it's like to be in pain. I never had that for anyone else in my life,
Mm.
only for the people in this fellowship. And I think of, you know, the 9-step promises, you will not regret the past here. Like everything I did, not until I worked with others was I able to see that none of this was in vain. This was all useful because everyone I sit across or talk to, everyone in 5th step, or even talk to or come to a meeting and you say something, I'm like, me too, did that. And this other person says the same too. Like, it's just amazing. And yes, love thy neighbor as thyself is like treat you the way I would like to be treated, regardless if if you don't speak back to me, like regardless. And like you touched on it, this is the way I should be acting. Like, you know, I go to work and I'm thinking, oh, I'm practicing these principles in all my affairs. And it's like, actually, the expectation is to be pleasant to people, Kathy, at work. That's not just because you're an alcoholic. That's kind of the thing. But for an alcoholic like me, I need a program to work that. And it doesn't matter what they do. I need to show up and be this demonstration. I need to show up and let God show up and show God off, because it's not of my own good that I'm able to behave like that. So absolutely, that's all I have on that. I'm going on too much. I'll read the next
No,
paragraph.
you're not. No, you're not.
It may
Want to show of hands? Anyone think that? No. See, no hands. Keep going.
It may seem incredible that these men are to become happy, respected, and useful once more. How can they rise out of such misery, bad repute, and hopelessness? The practical answer is that since these things have happened among us, they can happen with you. Should you wish above all else and be willing to make use of our experience, we're sure they will come. The age of miracles is still with us. Our own recovery proves that.
I have repute, which is character. And that's all for that paragraph.
Isn't this book great though? It has us do things like Brett is doing for us tonight. We look up definitions. You know, I don't have a very large education. I dropped out of school in the 8th grade. I'm very blessed, and people have guided me through my life, even though sometimes I sidetracked, got off the path many times. But I'm on it today because of a relationship with God. But because of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and because of that Webster's Dictionary, I actually can construct a pretty darn good email today, guys. I really can. And sometimes I even come up with a couple words. I go, where did those things come from? You know, it's like, yeah. And it really comes from studying, not reading, because this book is is written in English, but I can't read it. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody else, but I can't read this English in this book. I had to study this with somebody else. And I continue, and Kathy brought this up. I always want to be a student. I want to be new. I always want to remain new in this thing, because if I start thinking I got something here, I'm getting the farther away I get from the many times 24 hours I got away from my last drink, the closer I am to one. You know, we're going to get to that too in the next page of, I believe, too, talking about when Bill goes into the bar and when he starts considering, maybe I could have three. Boy, is that a lie, right? I'm gonna have 33. I'm not gonna have three. So back to the text here. So I want to read the forward to the first edition too. I just want to read that first paragraph if you guys are okay with that. Um, it says, "We of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who've recovered from a seamless, hopeless state of mind and body." And Kathy just talked about this, to show other alcoholics precisely how we recovered. What does that mean? That means exactly. That means clear cut directions. That means specifically. We don't have to invent a new mousetrap or a new wheel. The directions are in this book. And that's the main purpose of the book. For them, we hope these pages will prove so convincing that no further authentication will be necessary. We think this account of our experience will help everyone to better understand the alcoholic. Many do not comprehend the alcoholic as a very sick person, and besides, we are sure that our way of living has its advantages for all. That's called a spiritual experience, spiritual awakening. And right to Kathy's point, yeah, I'm supposed to be treating people really good, but because of the principles in my life, I do a better job of it. If I'm not practicing these principles, I'm not going to be able to treat you well. I just won't. So, and then it talks about in this paragraph too, it says, how can they rise out of such misery, bad repute, and hopelessness? You know, they talk about hopelessness. Bill talks about it on page 8, quicksand surrounding us in every direction. You know, alcohol become my master. If you're new here, I pray that you're hopeless, because I'm probably not going to do this work. I need to know, what is my relationship? How did I get in Alcoholics Anonymous or Cocaine Anonymous? Well, I got here because of my relationship with cocaine and alcohol. That's how I got here. But I needed to know what the problem was. And I found out that the first step says I'm powerless over all my altering substances. Let's use Cocaine Anonymous as first step. And that's a problem, but it's not the problem. How could it be? There, all of us have been here for a few 24 hours. That's not the problem. The problem is that my life is unmanageable, that I'm irritable, restless, and discontent, that everything in the bedevilment's on page 52. But the good news about page 52 is that uselessness that I feel, they're talking about here being removed from me, these misery, this bad repute, and this hopelessness. And actually, it happens 31 pages later in the big book on page 83, when the 9-step promises start to come alive. And then again on page 85 with the 10-step promises. So the practical answer, back to the text, the practical answer is that since these things have happened among us, they can happen with you. So I got to believe that it happens for RJ, it happened for Rob, it happened for June, that maybe this can happen for me too. And Kathy uses words that I like, and I've stole these guys from these words. My approach. I have to approach the new person. I have to triage the new person. I have to tell them, I have to qualify them to see if they're real alcoholics or drug addicts. And then I give them the solution by taking them through the work here. But the thing is, and it talks about it, the next sentence, the practical answer is that since these things have happened among us, they can happen with you. So if I just do this honestly and thoroughly, I can get the same result as June got, as Janice got, as Reese got. I can get those same exact experiences that you guys have. And then it says, should you wish them above all else would be willing to use our experience, we are sure they will come. The ages of a miracle is still with us. Yeah, it's a miracle. In the 10-step promises, it talks about the miracle, and I didn't cause it. I did not. I don't get to take credit for it. And I have a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. What does that mean? That means if I don't have a daily reprieve, I might be in trouble. Suddenly might show up. You know, hey, let's talk about Jim real quick, the car salesman. You know, he didn't enlarge in his spiritual life. He had a spiritual experience, but he didn't enlarge his spiritual life, and he drank again like 6 more times. Again, the good news is Howard's here. The bad news is Howard's here, because I don't even know if it's really 6 times or not. But you know, I don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. So just throwing it out there, guys. Don't write that down. I'm just saying, like, I got to continue to have these spiritual experiences. And every time I take one of my guys through the work, or one of my gals through the work, I get to have another spiritual experience. And I have it written down in my book somewhere. I'm going to see if I can find it, but there's 3 or 4 different ways to have a spiritual experience. I'll get to it in a second. Let me come back to it, and maybe I'll have to do it next week, because I don't know where it's at in my book. But it says the age of miracles still with us. Our own recovery proves that. Yeah, I am a demonstration in other people's life. You know, even people who knew me before I got sober, or people who knew me 20 years ago in Alcoholics Anonymous, I hope I've grown in a spiritual way. You know, I just got back from a national sales meeting in Dallas, Texas last week, and I'm very blessed. Um, uh, Humbly, Alcoholics Anonymous taught me how to be humble. You know, I'm the last one on stage because I'm number one in the company 8 years running, and it's a blessing. It's just in sales, and it just killed it. Just and after the banquet and the huge presentation of hundreds, 500 some people in the auditorium, and they put this big gala on. It's crazy. The owner of my company comes up to me. He goes, "Every year, I wait for you to give your talk at the very end." And I said, well, that was not my talk. I was a vessel for God that day, and you have access to him the same way as I do, the other 364 days of the year. And he laughed and he goes, you know what? You're right. And the nice thing about the company that I own a franchise part of is a Christian-based organization. So they kind of get it, and it allows me to be very comfortable to talk about God. And I'm always comfortable to talk about God. I am, man. And RJ will tell you that, right? It's just like, dude, how did I get here? By the grace of God. Does God have a grace of God have an expiration date? Yeah, it kind of does. I am responsible for the work here. So yeah, I've had this experience. The age of miracles happened in my life, and I have recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body. Good, Kathy.
Fantastic. Thanks, David. And yeah, I love this paragraph. It's just chock full of promises of fellowship here. But isn't it kind of incredible that we can, like David talked about, go to a gala and win an award 7 years in a row, to be happy, to be respectful, to be successful and useful once more. Like, and I'm not saying the cash and prizes in our life, but we are hopeless, helpless addicts. Like, I drank to work, and I worked to drink, basically. That's the only reason I worked. I needed the money to drink and to use. And to be happy, to be respected, and to be useful, which is the key word for me, is pretty remarkable. How can we, like it says, rise out of such misery, bad repute, bad character, and hopelessness? I couldn't really ask people for references on resumes when I was out there. You know what I mean? I didn't get good character references. I'm very unreliable. But Alcoholics Anonymous work in this program, this power gives me the ability to show up, to have a character, not the one I used to have. And like, as you said, David, like, I'm recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body. Like, we are recovered. We're not hopeless anymore. But it says here the practical answer is that since these things have happened among us, they can happen with you. So they're telling us through their practice, not through their theory. They're trying to sell us something here too. Like I said, it's the promises of the fellowship. If you want them, key word here is be willing to make use of our experience and what we've wrote down in this book. That's what I will add. They will come to you. The age of miracles is still with us. Our own recovery proves that. Like 89 years ago, it still applies, right? It still applies. The age of miracles is still with us. Just don't move. And if you do, change your address as well, because God will send you something in the mail. But that's a beautiful, beautiful paragraph. And there's great hope in that for anyone that's new here. But we have to work the program, because we have we have a more than a substitute. We have this substitute, this spiritual experience. That's what I'm talking about, through the working of the 12 steps. And I think Howard wanted to say something that you were looking for, David. Did you want to say something, Howard?
You mentioned the 3 ways to have a spiritual experience. Did you want me to get into that?
If you want, I have it written down here too. I found it, but go ahead. I'm sure I got it from you anyways. No, go ahead, brother.
Well, no, I got it from William James. It's from
Okay.
William
Yep.
James. There are 3 ways to have a spiritual experience. There's what they call spiritual rapture, which is Bill's way. There's what they call the burning bush, like Moses getting the 10 commandments, that kind of, that like Bill had, period. And then there's what they call close and intimate contact with friends, which is fellowship only. That it's possible to have that kind of experience with fellowship only. That's what binds us together, and we have that kind of experience. But the one that most of us fall into is the understanding oneself on a spiritual level that is beyond reason. And that's the big kahuna. That's a realization of one's limitations beyond logical, intellectual levels. It's as a result of the steps. As a result of some kind of spiritual activity, we have this understanding of ourselves that is beyond reason. So those are the three ways: this spiritual rapture, close and intimate contact with friends, and understanding oneself on a spiritual level beyond reason.
Thank you, sir.
That's William
Yeah,
James, not me.
Yeah, and I those are my actually word for word. I had that written down, so I obviously got it from you. And yeah, and if you want, I mean, the history of William James and Carl Jung meeting and all that kind of stuff is like, is it odd or is it God? I mean, come on. I mean, there's no question about it. So if you want to look at the history of that, we're not going to do that tonight. But yeah, it's phenomenal, phenomenal. It's just crazy. So okay.
Alrighty. Our hope is that when this chip of a book is launched on the world tide of alcoholism, defeated drinkers will seize upon it to follow its suggestions. Many, we are sure, will rise to their feet and march on. They will approach still other sick ones, and fellowships of Alcoholics Anonymous may spring up in each city and hamlet, havens for those who must find a way out.
I have C's, which is to take eagerly or decisively.
Thank you, Brett. Yeah, so this is our hope is that we that when this chip of a book, so that's just means a small piece of a book is launched on the world tide of alcoholism, defeated drinkers will seize upon. Yes, I'm a defeated drinker. I when I put it in my body, I can't control the amount I use, and when I stop, I cannot stay stopped, and my life is completely unmanageable. The bigger part of the illness here. Then it says drinkers will seize upon it. So that means that I'm willing to go to any lengths to get that solution and continue to do that willingness and do that work for the rest of my life so I can have permanent sobriety. And then follow its suggestions. So the suggestions are in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to do this work. The steps are not suggested. The work is suggested. Many we are sure will rise to their feet and march on. Bill makes a reference on the bottom of page 18 and 19 about that, and I'm going to do it. I'm just going to read the bottom of page 18, which is a great description, a condition that I should look for in a sponsor, because there was no such thing as a sponsor when the book was published necessarily, but this is a good way for me to look for a sponsor. Also, the italic writing on page 18 in the fourth paragraph, but I'm going to read the fifth paragraph. That man who is making the approach, and I circle the word approach because that sponsor is going to approach me, not waiting. I'm not going to go to him. I'm just saying, as a new guy, I'm not going to anybody, has had the same difficulty. So I'm looking for all these solutions here, same difficulty. So I'm looking for similarities, that he obviously knows what he's talking about. That his whole deportment, his behavior, right, shouts to the news prospect that he's a man with a real answer, the 12 steps of the solution, that he has no attitude of holier than thou, nothing whatever except a sincere desire to be helpful. There are no fees to pay, no axes to grind, no people to please, no lectures to be endured. These are the conditions, and those are 10 conditions there. I didn't number them for you this time. You'll have to do that next time we go through the book. Conditions we found most effective. And it says, after such an approach, many take up their beds and walk again. This actually comes out of the Bible. I'm not going to get into it because I'm not really good with the Bible, but Jesus came and people picked up their beds and walked again who could not walk. So those are the miracles. And this is a miracle that we get to have. We get to have this if we do this work honestly and thoroughly here. So then it says they will, back to the reading here, 153, second paragraph, 2/3 through the page or the paragraph. They will approach still other sick ones, and Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous may spring up in every city and hamlet, havens of those who must find a way out. So, a couple things I want to address on that. If you have a sick meeting and you come to my meeting that I go to live and you say, we need support, I will take you aside after the meeting and go, no, you need to fold. You need to go away. And I've been to your meeting. You don't need to. No, some meetings need to fold. We have a lot of meetings. Go find a literature-based meeting somewhere. These just, what did you say? Disgusting meetings, right? Yeah. Is Cameron, yeah, right? Yeah. He says that. So those are the things that I'm looking for. I'm looking for relatable things, identifiable things in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I want I need solution-based meetings. So the sick ones of the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous may spring up in every city and hamlet, havens of those who must find a way out. So I'm, the title that they were tickling their fancy with in the beginning, they were going to do that. They found out there was 12 or 13 of them already, and so they didn't go that way, and I'm glad that they didn't. So the thing is like, I have recovered because of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, just kind of summarizing this page here. I was defeated. I'm no longer defeated. I've risen up on my feet and I march on. March on means with just like trudging here. And they will I had to approach sick people in the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I need to carry this message. It's not an option. It's an obligation. And I'm very comfortable doing it today. I absolutely love opening the eyes of the alcoholic who still suffers and then giving them the guaranteed solution with these precise, specific, and clear-cut directions. A lot of times, David and I, my partner here in crime, we go to meetings and some people get up and leave right when we walk in the room because they don't want to hear the Big Book. And then there's a couple guys that it's a shame that they don't want to do that, but that's just how it operates for me. But my Monday night Cocaine Anonymous meeting, if you look around the table, I sponsor a lot of people and they sponsor a lot of people. And I always tell my sponsees, don't ever show up in my presence without a Big Book because I never know when I might need it. And I will need it. So if you look around the table, 40 people on my Monday night Cocaine Anonymous meeting, 30 of them have Big Books. That's the lineage at my meeting. And we all have it so that we can approach the newcomer so that we're not making up things along the way, the same way as I was brought up in AA. Only by the grace of God, I didn't pick up a drink or drug, but I need to have my Big Book with me. So, and I have some, there's David and I have a website, how to work the 12 steps in 12 weeks. You work at 12 steps in 12 hours. We've done it 12 steps in 2 hours. We've done it on Zoom meetings before. And when we start our new group that's going to start taking place on, I think it's June 5th at 3:30 on a Friday afternoon, and we're going to miss our friends in Vietnam and Thailand and stuff like that. I know that it's bright and early in the morning for you guys, and man, dude, I miss you. I will miss you guys. But I'm going to come to your meeting. That's how that's going to work. So I'm going to show up at your meeting. But the thing is about that is like when we start doing that, this is how we're going to start our first 12 weeks. We're going to do a step a week. The way we break it down and take people through the work, we're just going to go at a slower pace and do it in a 45-minute to an hour time and break down the first step, week 1, second step, week 2, and so on and so forth. And that's the only plan of action that we have thus far. So you have to show up and see if there's any more details that we're going to bring to the equation. Go ahead, Kathy.
Thanks, David. Just clarify, that's going to be online, right? In June 5th?
Yeah, so that'll be right here on the compendium group.
Yeah.
Same bat station, bat time. The time is just going to be 3:30 in the afternoon on a Friday, or 4:30 Eastern time, or 9:30 in the UK.
So what are they going to do in this time period?
Someone's taking it over, I believe.
Ooh, that's me.
I don't remember.
Oh, anyway, but I the idea how we should go and visit Thailand and Scott and everyone else here from Thailand. That's what we got to do.
We should. Yeah.
Us over this side. I love this page, and I was just saying to Howard how Bill is so humble. Like, our hope is that when this chip, thank you so much, Brett, for the dictionary. I too am not a graduate student. I do not have a master's. I have none of that. High school was it for me. So I really appreciate looking up these words. But like this small piece of a book is launched, it'll help defeated drinkers and will seize upon it to follow its suggestions. He was such a visionary. Like, and I just sit here and I think of how 19 other people here 20 because you're here. Sorry. Like our deal is we are hope dealers. Like, you know what I mean? For the new people that come in here, like that's what we got to deal in is hope. We got to, like you read out the conditions for being a sponsor. Like we have to have a message of depth and weight. And defeated. Like I love that because when I came here, like people I would hear talk about bottoms, and I don't know because the bottom was a trap door for me. So am I defeated? Am I licked? And that will give me this desperation, which gives me this willingness. And we talked about willing in the previous paragraph to do what I'm told, to take direction, follow suggestions. I like to say take direction. But it's also, here's our job. Like, again, we're talking about being useful. I think that this is a call to action. I know I keep saying that, but this is what we have to do is we have to approach other sick people. That's our job here. You know what I mean? It's like for fun and for free. And for the people that must find a way out. And I was just saying to Howard, how I love that. And I wish they would have called that when they were looking to find a name for the book, a way out, a way up and out. Like we know what it's like to be in the hole of alcoholism. Like we need out. We don't need a band-aid. We need it out of there. We need to be rocketed. You know what I mean? It's like, I just love it. Like, so yeah, absolutely. Great paragraph. And yeah, that's all I have on that. Well,
So we're at the top of the hour.
oh, sorry. Yeah.
Believe it or not, I don't know how that happened, but oh my gosh, that's because you bring the excitement. Thank you so much, Kathy. So yeah, I want to thank Kathy for, oh my God, you rock. You make it so much fun for me, and you're so reliable and knowledgeable, and it's a lot of fun. Howard, thank you for participating also and helping out. Brett, thank you for the dictionary. Rob, of course, for everything that you do to make sure this thing's rocking and rolling. So appreciate you guys. Does anyone have any questions or anything that we need to clarify? Because tonight would be a great night with Howard being here, just in case, because again, I don't know that many things, to be honest with you. Does anyone have anything? June?
I could just comment.
Sure, of course.
An alcoholic. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, David, for a wonderful meeting. And I was just wanted to say, I love what you said, Kathy, about fellowship with a capital F and how we carry the message to our sponsees and they carry it to their sponsees. And it's like that snowball effect, but it's really carrying the message of how to have a spiritual awakening. That's what I got from that. And then, like David said, you know, our solution is to gain a spiritual experience. So with that snowball effect, we're all gaining that spiritual experience. And then here come the 3 ways to have a spiritual experience, and one of those being fellowship. So, and then of course, then the program, you know, not many have it like Bill, but then the program helps us gain the 3rd type for many of us, you know, understanding ourselves in such a deep spiritual manner, and having this relationship with higher power. So I just wanted to say I thought that was beautiful, and thank you.
Oh, thank you, June. Appreciate you. Anybody else? So there's 2 fellowships. I would bring that up. There's the spirit of the fellowship, as we talked about tonight. We'll get to it in a couple of weeks. The Fellowship of the Spirits on page 164. So lots to look forward to yet. So thank you again, Kathy, very, very much. If no one else has anything, we close this meeting with the 11-step prayer, which is on page 99 of our 12 and 12. And I'm sure Rob will put it in the chat so you can follow along if you don't have your 12 and 12 in front of you. So this is St. Francis's prayer. This is the 11-step prayer.
He already has. Yep.
Awesome. Lord, make me a channel of thy peace, that where there is hatred, I may bring love. That where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness. That where there is discord, I may bring harmony. That where there is error, I may bring truth. That there is doubt, where there is doubt, I may bring faith. That where there is despair, I may bring hope. That where there are shadows, I may bring light. That where there is sadness, I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted, to understand than to be understood, to love than to be loved. For it is by self-forgetting that one finds It is by forgiving that one is forgiven. It is by dying that one awakens to eternal life.
Oh,
Amen. Thank you guys so much. Love you all. God bless.
This was so much fun.
Thank you,
Come back.
Kathy. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Brad.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
Thanks, Rob.
Good
Thanks,
night.
thanks
you
so
guys.
much,
Have a good
everyone.
night.
Guys.
Good
Thanks,
job.
Good night,
Dave.
guys.
Thanks, Kathy.
And
Thanks, Harold.
thank you,
Thanks.
Rob.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks,
We all
Trey.
good? We all good for Sunday, Kathy?
Yeah,
Okay.
I will.
I'll send you. I think I sent over the flyer, but I'll double check because I've been WhatsApping all over the place.
Okay,
I'll
yeah,
send
no
you-
bother. We'll be there bright and early, 9 a.m.
No problem. I know it's very early for you, but it's very late for us.
What time will it be for you then?
Pardon?
What time will it be for you?
No,
9?
it's 8 p.m. for
See you,
us here,
Rob.
but it's 8 p.m. for us.
Oh, okay, not too.
I mean, what it is your clocks have changed. The clocks in the UK will be changing this weekend. Our clocks don't change.
Never.
No, we get 12 hours daylight every day, so we don't have to save it.
That's where I remember someone saying they get 12. That's where it is. It's you guys in Thailand get 12 hours.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, 6:30 a.m. daylight, 6:30 p.m. dusk. At some points, it's 6:45 to 6:45, and 6:15 to 6:15. But basically, give or take a half-hour window, so you can quite literally set your clock by it.
That's
Wow.
amazing that it comes down to being within an hour. All of this nonsense